It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, there's some news that broke out over the weekend around HP and Xerox. I got a bunch of emails. You know what's really exciting, is when you predict something. And back in 2017 in Zhuhai, China, when I gave a speech, I talked about how HP should go buy Xerox. Of course, the analyst came up right after me and said, "Oh, that'll never happen, Ray. That's a crazy idea. What are you thinking? That's nuts." Of course, that analyst proved to be the one that was kind of nuts or didn't have any vision. Because obviously in 2019, Xerox went after HP, right? They were the bold ones. They went after HP. Well, there's another article out there, some analysts, saying that, hey, here's 3 reasons why HP should go buy Xerox. Folks, here's the reality. I don't care if the math works. I don't care if the stock price works. The reality of HP buying Xerox would be terrible for my friends in the Document Imaging channel. If there's going to be a deal between HP and Xerox, it has to be led by Xerox. First of all, Xerox already proved they have the boldness to actually lead that deal. Remember HP hiding under their desk? Remember that, folks? Come on, man. Remember back in 2019, all the reasons why it wasn't a good idea? We knew what it was all about. It was all about the power. We got some new people that got in charge over at HP, and they just didn't want to lose their power. They didn't realize that power is not something people give you. Power is something you take. And of course, Xerox was taking the power away from HP. They didn't like that, so they just sabotaged the deal every way they could. And now all of a sudden you got analysts out there saying, "Hey, HP, this makes sense. You ought to go buy Xerox." Well, today what I want to do is I want to talk about a paragraph that was in this article that our friends over at CRN wrote and published. You know what's interesting I'm starting to notice? I'm starting to notice that the outside presses are talking about really relevant things to the Document Imaging channel, way ahead of the inside press. It seems like the inside press, the folks we're talking about, right? It seems like for the most part, they keep publishing nonsensical press releases that aren't doing anything to help our friends in the imaging channel move the needle, or they're venues to go dispute anything that might be a little bit negative about the industry. In other words, if Ray does an end of the day with Ray and talks about how an OEM is probably going to sell off all their direct operations, you could be assured there'll be an executive from that OEM on one of the venues in the imaging channel talking about how that's just not reality. Here's the reality. Any OEM leader that says that selling their direct operations is not on the table is basically lying to you, because they are on the table. They're lying to you, folks, or they're completely clueless in where this industry's going. This industry's going to consolidate. There's going to be a lot of changes that are going to happen. And we got to stop listening to things that just make us feel good. Because every time we do that, we end up getting surprised. And then we see the headlines. We see all the headlines. "Oh, nobody saw that coming. Wow, can you believe XYZ bought XYZ? Oh my gosh, it's unbelievable." And then they'll have webinars. "Oh, we're going to have a webinar because this is so unbelievable. We got to talk about it." Folks, here's the reality. Start talking about these things before they happen. When you start talking about it before they happen, guess what? You're much more prepared when they do happen. And so I want to throw a kudos out to our friends at CRN, putting this article out there. But this analyst comes out there and he says there's 3 reasons why HP should buy Xerox. I don't give a crap about any of these 3 reasons. What I want to do is I want to pull up and talk to you about the reason they didn't do the deal back in 2019. So ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I want to get my magic board from Sharp working here, because I got to circle this paragraph, because it's extremely important to get your head around this, okay? Here's the deal. HP's board, this is back in 2019, my friends. HP's board of directors has repeatedly rejected the takeover deal since it was first proposed by Xerox in November of 2019, saying the deal would compromise the future of HP and the value of shares of HP's common stock. So when you read that paragraph, it tells you real clearly that HP never understood the value of Xerox. HP never understood the value of Xerox distribution. They never understood that Xerox was the largest dealer, reseller in the world, delivering print equipment, its supplies and services to end users. They just didn't realize that, or they were just so naive not to understand how valuable that asset could have been to HP. And so what has HP done over the last 15 months through this global pandemic, folks? I mean, here's the deal. They went back and bought their own shares. Well, naturally, their stock price is going to rise when you go out there and keep buying up your own shares, right? What else did they do? They keep telling the whole world about their millions of subscriptions they're signing up, but yet that's not moving the needle on their revenue. I believe it's all hype. That's just my opinion, but it's all hype. I believe that the share price at HP is based on hype. What have we seen our friends over at Xerox do in the last 15 months? Folks, again, they made some bold moves. They were making bold moves back in 2019 and 2020. You know, remember all the complainers? Oh, HP is a terrible company. Or Xerox. Well, HP is a terrible company, in my opinion. But Xerox, they're doing some terrible things. They're doing terrible things. They're firing people. You know, they're cleaning up distribution. They were doing what they had to do in a declining marketplace, and they were doing it ahead of a global pandemic. What has Xerox done over the last 15 months? They split the thing up in 3 different divisions. Remember that? The finance business, the innovation business, the software business. Folks, that Care AR software they have is going to change services all over the world for all kinds of industries. Their finance business, pretty soon school districts will be financing their bus fleets through Xerox Financial Services. That's where this goes in my mind. The innovation business, folks, Xerox is positioning themselves for the future. What has HP really been doing over the last 15 months? Well, they've been positioning themselves so they could drag the past to the future. They're still talking about print and subscription print. And then they brag about their compute business. Well, personal systems business, I've talked about this before. What is it, $35 billion business running on a 5% operating margin? Oh yeah, that's a home run. That'll help us out. They talk about how because people get, new computers every 3 years or so, and they had a big, kind of spike 3 years ago that they ought to have another spike now. Well, they're not putting into fact that maybe these people are going to move from PC to Apple. Maybe these people are going to give Dell a try or Lenovo a try as Dell and Lenovo continue to get really, really competitive. So we got a $35 billion PC business, which is way more of a commodity than even print at this point. And we believe that HP is going to miraculously start getting 10 or 12 or 15 points in that business. Probably not. So ladies and gentlemen, I am excited about the possibilities. Let me clear off my board here. I am excited about the possibilities of Xerox and HP coming together. I predicted this thing back in 2017. But it has to be Xerox leading the charge. It has to be. There is no way in the world that board over at HP that's been there way too long, my opinion, and the leadership that HP currently has could do anything to change the game. I think if they did go after and buy Xerox and take control of that company, it would be some interesting things to think about. I mean, when I based it on HP buying a mega dealer, that's one thing for all those dealers that signed up on an Amplify contract to think about. Could you imagine if they actually bought Xerox, took control of all that? Are all these Xerox dealers, do they have to sign the Amplify contract now? What about all the data? I mean, this could be a disaster. And we know that HP, come on folks, have they really been hitting it out of the park in that B2B business model of print? Remember this? We're going to disrupt the $55 billion A3 marketplace back in 2017. I mean, how many more years do they get to practice, trying to disrupt the A3 marketplace before somebody just says, hey, you tried, but you failed at it. You tried to sign up a whole bunch of dealers. You tried to get them to sell all these A3 machines that you're getting from Samsung, but guess what? It's not working. I mean, what are they doing out there with their A3s that they have in the market today? Practically giving them away if the dealers will give away the data. I guess they want to take that to another level with Xerox. Folks, here's the reality. Here's the reality. Don't get too excited about HP buying Xerox. If you want to get excited about Xerox buying HP. And now a lot of you are going to go back to that same original argument that we heard back in 2019. Where are they going to get the money? Who's going to lend Xerox the money? Xerox would be buying something so much bigger than them. Okay, folks, here's the reality. This would be a strategy. There would be other players involved. Our industry needs to consolidate. It needs to consolidate drastically. And just start thinking about the players that could get involved. There's some players out there in the space, folks, that have to do some things, have to change some things to survive, right? We've got to survive and thrive. Just like I talk about Ricoh and Kyocera coming together. What if Xerox got together with Ricoh and Kyocera and then went out and got HP? I mean, there's so many different ways to do this. But here's the reality. It doesn't get done with weak leadership. It doesn't get done with leadership that fought it 3 or 4 years ago. And they based that argument on that it wouldn't be good for HP shareholders. And they never could articulate why it wouldn't be good. I don't believe they ever truly understood the depth of what Xerox distribution could have done for HP. They didn't understand it. That means they couldn't lead it. And if you think about what they've done in the last 15 months, nothing they've done shows me that they're in a position to really control the declining market of print. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But ladies and gentlemen, one thing we all know this for sure. Status quo is a killer. If all it'll be invented, don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see y'all tomorrow.